This man, the founder of Wikileaks, is holding the powerful to account by leaking secrets like this.
1-8, clear. Come on.
What annoys me the most is when people abuse their power and harm innocents.
The scale of the leaks, unprecedented.
These releases are based on 400,000 classified documents.
Julian Assange is fighting extradition to Sweden on a rape allegation.
A black box has been applied to my life. And on the outside of that black box has been written the word rape.
In America, he's accused of endangering lives.
Sources of ours are now in jail. Sources of ours now fear for their lives.
Jesus Christ.
But who has Julian been giving the leaks to?
If there was any involvement of an anti-Semite in WikiLeaks, why didn't anyone tell me? Because I wouldn't work with such a guy.
And what does that say about the man and the organization he leads?
With it became very powerful, and you cannot let power remain unchecked. "30 meters below ground, from this Cold War nuclear bunker in Sweden, a revolution of a kind. The heart of an information machine, using the internet to globalize openness." And what are those things then?
These are the power generators.
From what looks like a James Bond set, WikiLeaks puts out secrets the rich and powerful would rather we didn't know. The concept behind WikiLeaks is simple. Whistleblowers can post secrets to a secure electronic mailbox. The idea? No one should ever find out who they are. How much information is moving through this room?
I would say infinite. It's a gigantic amount of information. We have about 10% of the Swedish internet traffic. I'll come here and I will show you. So these are the two WikiLeaks servers, and they are live now, and thousands of people are visiting them all the time.
This one and this one. I won't touch. I'm not going to touch. I'm not touching.
You don't want the YouTube clip where you destroy the WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks have backups which replicate the material on similar servers all over the world. So if any government tries to close down WikiLeaks, for example this one here in Sweden, it'll pop up somewhere else. WikiLeaks is using the universality of the internet to challenge the power of the nation state. And the most powerful nation of all can do precious little to stop it. The last thing the American superpower wanted to share was this video released by WikiLeaks last April. An Apache gunship hovers over Baghdad. On the ground, suspected insurgents.
That's a weapon. Yeah.
But also a Reuters news photographer and his driver.
Request permission to engage. Light them all up. Come on, fire. Hey, Roger. You guys got that guy crawling right now on the curb? Yeah, I got him. Have individuals going to the scene.
A van pulls up to help the injured.
Request permission to engage.
Book map 7, Roger, engage.
1-8, engage. Clear. Come on. Oh yeah, look at that, right through the windshield.
At least 11 people dead. The Americans investigated and say they found no wrongdoing. But they didn't want the world to see this.
Oh, it's their fault for bringing their kids to a battle. That's right.
WikiLeaks call the video, which was posted anonymously, collateral murder. It rocketed the website to international fame.
He risks his life to promote transparency. Please welcome Julian Assange.
Into the battle between power and openness, enter a rock star for the digital age.
What we want to create is a system where there is guaranteed free press across the world, the entire world, that every individual in the world has the ability to publish material that is meaningful.
The man who founded Wikileaks in 2006 sees himself as a fighter for openness. And from the early days, Wikileaks had some great scoops. Operating manuals for Guantanamo Bay. In Kenya, evidence of police death squads. And here in Germany, a dossier against a major drugs company accused of bribing doctors. The Berlin Wall, a symbol of repression for decades. When it came down in 1989, it felt like a whole world had been opened up. Now, Wikileaks is promising to bring down the firewall between those who wield power and ordinary people. Wikileaks is now considered so powerful, it's credited by some with having a hand in the revolutions in Tunisia and Egypt.
This is Julian Assange. We're here to make a short presentation about the Wikileaks project. It is very, very important to preserve our historic record as detailed and as accurate as possible.
At Julian's side, Daniel Domscheit-Berg, his right-hand man and a software wizard. Daniel? Hello.
Hi.
Don Sweeney.
Hi, how are you? Pleased to meet you. It was the best time in my life, because every time when I woke up, something new had happened. So it was almost too exciting to even go to sleep, because either some publication had made the news somewhere and something had changed, or something new had got in. There was always this uncertainty of what actually happened, but something always happened.
Also on the inside, Birgitte Jonsdottir, a radical Icelandic MP. She helped produce the Apache gunship video for Wikileaks.
Light them all up. Come on, fire!
I was deeply moved. I mean, I was sitting there and crying, and particularly when I saw the wounded man trying to get up and they were hoping that they could shoot him. If you don't have free press, if you don't have freedom of information in your democratic society, you are not living in a democracy.
Daniel and Julian fought many battles for openness together.
He was a man with a mission. I mean, he was one of the few people I knew that were willing to do something without thinking, first of all, about how they could maybe profit from it, how they could sustain their living from it or whatever. So he was willing to go to a great length just to make sure that this idea worked.
For a man whose mission is to bring openness to the world, Julian, surprisingly, when Panorama approached him, closed down. We asked him repeatedly for an interview. He said no. We asked his lawyer and his spokesman. They didn't want to take part. We asked some of his supporters, including Bianca Jagger, Jemima Goldsmith, film director Ken Loach, and journalist John Pilger. They too said no. But Julian's not exactly camera shy. A TV crew from his native Australia got a rare insight into his family history.
What is your background? What is your childhood and your youth? Is it true? 30 schools?
37.
37 schools.
An unconventional family life kept him on the move as a child. As a man, he's still on the move, trying to keep one step ahead of the authorities he fears are out to stop him.
Pure angel.
Me?
Yes.
A pure angel?
Yeah,
That's just the hair.
Julian loved computers, and by the age of 19, he was hacking into US military computer systems.
Yeah, I mean, we had a back door in the US Military Security Coordination Center. We had total control over this for 2 years.
He pleaded guilty to 24 hacking-related offences in 1996, but avoided jail. 10 years later, Julian, at the helm of Wikileaks, was back in control, using the internet to poke power in the eye. And to avoid the reach of America, Julian chose to base himself in countries like Sweden, attracted by their laws on openness. It it was also a place to forge alliances with other freedom of information campaigners.
Information can no longer be controlled. So what used to be power in the hands of a small selected elite at the top of the pyramid is now actually power at the base of the pyramid. The entire power has shifted 180 degrees. And there's going to be lots of struggles before we see an equilibrium on this.
It didn't take long for the Americans to strike back, claiming their first scalp in the battle with WikiLeaks. 7 weeks after the release of the Apache gunship video, Private Bradley Manning, a US intelligence analyst in Iraq, was arrested. WikiLeaks has never said whether Manning is its source, but Julian is on the record pledging support for whistleblowers.
If they are exposed, then we'll fight like hell to bring attention to their plight, and we'll send lawyers and cash if necessary to try and get them out of that bad situation.
But for months, WikiLeaks sent neither lawyers nor cash. A figure of $50,000 was mentioned. But so far, the Bradley Manning Legal Fund has only received $15,100 from WikiLeaks.
If you look at it from a certain point of view, it looks like because our payment or WikiLeaks payment was delayed for so long, many other people around the world had contributed. And with every contribution, the amount that was needed from WikiLeaks grew less, decreased. And that's not the right attitude either.
Manning, now 23, was apparently shopped by a former computer hacker. The word is he'd copied the video and a mass of other secrets from classified US databases while listening to Lady Gaga. If convicted, he could face 52 years in prison.
If Bradley Manning is the source for that material, he is the true whistleblower. WikiLeaks only relayed that material to the public. And in that respect, that person is the one that should receive all the support.
From the moment Manning was arrested, the clock was ticking. Could the Americans close down the site before the next leak? WikiLeaks was sitting on thousands and thousands of documents, including the inside story of the Afghan war, reports and logs, almost all classified.
Where are we heading now?
Off to the bunker in The Guardian.
Julian turned to the mainstream media.
And the deal was this. He would turn over the material to us, we would select it, we would study it, we would analyse it, we would do all the things that journalists do to make sense of stuff. We'd publish it, and WikiLeaks would get the credit.
2 other newspapers were in on the deal. Immediately they saw a problem. The documents were littered with the names of Afghans who'd helped the Americans.
We were really worried about these informants. We were really worried that unless their names were deleted, they would suffer reprisals. They might even be killed.
But Julian wanted to publish in full. The plan was for the papers to go to print at the same time that Julian released all the documents online.
And we sat there with Julian and we said, look, we're still really worried about this question of the informants. And my personal recollection is that Julian said words to the effect of, if they get killed, they deserve it because they're informants, and therefore, they deserve to die. And there was a sort of silence around the table, and I think we all thought that was a very callous thing to say.
The newspapers removed all the names. WikiLeaks didn't. It held back 15,000 documents to minimize harm, but put out 77,000. Dozens of Afghans were identified. The Americans say that although there's no evidence anyone has been killed, there are victims.
Sources of ours are now in jail. Sources of ours now fear for their lives. Is that what the revelation of information is supposed to do? Fundamentally change people who were trying to provide a service, who were trying to open up closed societies? But what WikiLeaks has done is put those people who are trying to change authoritarian societies, it's put their lives and their futures at risk. Is that what this is supposed to achieve?
Human rights groups criticize WikiLeaks for failing to protect the Afghans. Amnesty International offered to discuss helping with future redactions. Julian reportedly replied, "I'm very busy and have no time to deal with people who prefer to do nothing but cover their asses."
True.
Arne, A-R-N.
Daniel says that by the time Julian accepted that names should be removed from the Afghan war logs, it was too late.
It was rushing things. It was making agreements that we couldn't stick to, that were not healthy, that were not transparent enough, that no one else understood in the organization. And in the end, it all fell on our toes.
And then more trouble, but this time it was personal. News broke of a rape investigation here in Sweden. The alleged culprit, Julian Assange. Could this be a coincidence? After the rape allegations broke, Assange tweeted, "We were warned to expect dirty tricks. Now we have the first one." And his lawyer, Mark Stevens, spoke of a honey trap. What does the lawyer for the two women make of the suggestion of dirty tricks? Could this be a CIA setup?
It's not a dirty trick. There is no conspiracy. These two women did not know each other before. They had never met Julian Assange. They were very much for the Wikileaks, and they still are.
Are you or they in the pay of the CIA?
I'm sorry I'm laughing. No, I would never accept that. There's no honey trap or whatever it's called in English.
Julian denies the women's allegations. His lawyers now suggest they're motivated by money and revenge. Daniel put it to Julian, but he'd take a back seat until he cleared his name. And you suggested that to him?
Yes.
What did he say?
No, that was not negotiable. He took this as an attack. He said it was a power grab that I was making. He was alleging that I was seeing this as my chance, as he put it, to get out of middle management.
Tension was mounting, but the leaks were still being published.
These releases are based on 400,000 classified documents that were received and published by WikiLeaks.
The third big revelation, America's Iraqi war logs detailing incidents from the front line. This time, identities were protected. Here, a US soldier reports seeing an Iraqi policeman torturing a suspect. He records hearing whipping noises and finding a man beating a detainee's feet with electric cable. The abuse was not immediately investigated. Next, Cablegate. 250,000 leaked documents revealing US diplomatic traffic on everything, from China to the Lockerbie bomber. The Americans weren't best pleased.
The United States strongly condemns the illegal disclosure of classified information. It puts people's lives in danger, threatens our national security, and undermines our efforts to work with other countries to solve shared problems.
Suddenly, Visa, MasterCard and PayPal stopped processing donations into WikiLeaks. Thanks, Julian said, to political pressure from the Americans. The companies say they're concerned about the legality of what WikiLeaks is doing.
Jesus Christ.
By now, Julian can't pick up a paper without seeing himself.
Guardian has it all again. The front page.
Or move without a camera being pointed at him.
Could we talk a bit about, Julian, your life and the way you have to live because of the precious...
No. It's an interview about me or it's an interview about WikiLeaks. Can't be an interview about both.
I mean, you've got your own banner at the top here for 3 pages in the Times.
Well, I'm untouchable now in this country.
Untouchable? Now he's not just holding power to account, but has power in his own right. How he handles it matters.
I sometimes describe him as somebody with an incredibly high IQ and a remarkably low EQ.
Emotional intelligence.
Yes. I think he's just underdeveloped in the sense when it comes to having compassion to how other people feel or think, whereas he can always have a very interesting intellectual debate with you.
I mean, you're talking about a man who has given up his home, his family, and even his homeland for something he believes in. Not many people would live in a suitcase for a cause they believe in so deeply.
But Birgitta and Daniel were becoming worried about the lack of openness at Wikileaks.
Wikileaks fights for transparency. And when I was there was very little transparency about it, and I could understand it when it was really tiny. But with its success, it became very powerful, and you cannot let power remain unchecked.
The growing dissent inside Wikileaks led to a row online by instant message. Julian accused Daniel of leaking to the press, something Daniel denies. Daniel challenged Julian about his leadership style. Julian didn't like that.
So you say to Julian, stop shooting at messengers. Julian, I've had it. Daniel, likewise, and that doesn't just go for me. Julian, if you do not answer the question, you will be removed. Daniel, you're not anyone's king or god. And then it goes on, Julian, you were suspended for 1 month, effective immediately. You, ha. And then he finishes off, if you wish to appeal, it will be heard on Tuesday. What was that about?
The background of this was that I was asking him about what specific deals he had made with media in respect to collaboration on releases. I just wanted to know what he had been working out, with whom, and he refused that. He took this whole occasion of talking to me to tell me that I was not allowed to ask questions to him, that he does not have to answer to me. He has this really weird hierarchy.
What he didn't know while he was being disciplined was that Julian was dealing with a man with a very unsavory reputation. He's a Wikileaks associate in Russia who claims to have access to all 250,000 of the leaked US cables, which he selects for the region's media. His name? Israel Shamir.
Future is not something that exists independently of our efforts, of your effort and of my effort. Future is something that we do together.
Whose future exactly? Meet Alexander Lukashenko, the president of the former Soviet Republic of Belarus. He's been described as the last dictator in Europe.
The elections that took place last year in December show just what Alexander Lukashenko is made of. Lukashenko arrested 700 citizens, protesters, journalists, politicians who are members of the opposition, and the EU and America have both now introduced travel bans on Lukashenko. The EU has frozen his assets.
Exactly the sort of chap Wikileaks would want to target. But online, its associate Shamir not only praises the regime, but also uses a Wikileaks cable to suggest that America is bankrolling the opposition. And that, say the human rights group, could endanger democracy activists.
Israel Shamir is using his privileged position as Wikileaks' conduit in Belarus and Eastern Europe to support a dictatorship, a vicious regime. And it should worry Wikileaks that their good name is being used in this way.
Wikileaks say Shamir has never worked for them and they don't endorse his writing. Shamir claims he's being smeared and that he also supplied cables to opposition media. We've also discovered that Shamir, though born a Jew in Russia, was convicted of stirring up racial hatred against Jews in his absence by a French court in 2008. Julian was warned about Israel Shamir's views a year earlier.
Panorama has been leaked this. It's a WikiLeaks secret. On it, an email from Julian Assange.
It reads as follows. Dear Israel/Adam, someone wrote saying they refuse to associate with an organisation that would work with an anti-Semite like Israel Shamir. Julian goes on, from a brief sampling of your writing, I did not find the allegation borne out. I found these samples to be strong and compassionate. Julian went on to suggest a solution, that Shamir write for Wikileaks under another name, and that's handy because he's got a few of them. Among them, Adam Ermash and Yoran Yermas. Whatever the name, Julian and Shamir were photographed together 2 months ago.
How in hell is that guy involved, and why didn't I know about this? I mean, if there was any involvement of an anti-Semite in WikiLeaks, why didn't anyone tell me? Because I wouldn't work with such a guy.
Shamir ignored our question about his conviction, but wrote online, I harbour no hate to a Jew because he is a Jew. However, I do criticise various aspects of the Jewish worldview. We asked Julian about Shamir and all the other points we raised in the programme. He didn't reply, but his lawyers have accused both Panorama and Daniel of using stolen documents. Strange from a man who got 250,000 American cables. Time to catch up with him. Julian, why won't you talk to Panorama? For the last 2 months, he's had to report to this police station. This was as close as we could get. Julian, do you still stand by Mr. Shamir? Last week, a court heard Julian's case against extradition to Sweden on allegations of rape and sexual assault. He'll learn his fate in 10 days' time. Birgitta left WikiLeaks before the release of the Iraq war logs. So did Daniel and others, taking with them software which made WikiLeaks safe for whistleblowers. WikiLeaks say they suspended Daniel, concerned about his conduct, and have accused him of sabotage, which he denies. Either way, WikiLeaks Online is now closed for leaks. Daniel has now launched his own website, OpenLeaks. Aren't you setting up in opposition to WikiLeaks, and therefore you're the opposition? So what you're doing, cunningly perhaps, is knocking down WikiLeaks so you can build up OpenLeaks.
No, that's not what we're doing. So I believe that generally centralism is no good. So it's not good if there's only one solution for a problem that exists in society. And I'd be more than happy to see WikiLeaks flourish in the future too.
In a statement received this afternoon, WikiLeaks told us they did not want to take part in the programme because we are repeating, they say, sleazy, hackneyed and completely false claims. To his supporters, Julian Assange, however flawed, has changed the world.
The thing here is that WikiLeaks is a pioneer. When you are a pioneer, you do make mistakes, and I think that one needs to have a bit of understanding that pioneers do make mistakes. That's part of breaking new ground.
But with changing the world comes scrutiny and responsibility, and that's something he's only going to face more of.
Disaster looms next on BBC One, but can the outcasts survive? Something for Valentine's Day on BBC Two, Horizon considers how to mend a broken heart. And BBC Three is in Uganda, the world's worst place to be gay.